Hi, my name is Angela Heydt. I was born in North Point Village, right about 4 miles from the church. I grew up with a mom and dad and 4 older brothers. With the 4 older brothers, it seems like mom was pretty busy taking care of them. So I was pretty independent from day one. So I graduated high school in 1987 and I got married at 18 in January of 1988. Things were good in the beginning. You know, I just thought I'd have a couple children. Maybe one day I'd go back to college, and life was looking pretty good for me. 3 months later, the end of April, I was teaching ballet on Saturday mornings and working full-time during the week. My legs were numb while I was teaching the little girls, and I thought, this is odd. And about 3 days later, I was numb from my waist down. So that was the first thing I guess I could say. I really just started praying, like, God, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know how to handle this. Again, and I'll say this probably quite a lot, I believe that God puts people in our life for a reason. Somebody that I used to dance with, she was not even, I don't even know where I saw her, but Renee Heitman said to me, oh goodness, I work at Good Samaritan. Why don't you go to get an appointment with a neurologist and I can, you can follow me down there one day. So I did that, and the words out of the neurologist's mouth were, I've never seen somebody that can't feel anything on their legs. I want you to see a neurosurgeon. So I'm 18 years old. I'm by myself in this doctor's office, and I'm scared. He said, well, we don't really know what's causing this, but you could have MS. So I said, this is kind of funny, do you mean Jerry's kids? And he said, no ma'am, that's MD. I said, well, if I have that, can you test me for it? How do we treat this? And this was 1988, so he said, there is no test, there is no treatment, and there is no cure. Okay, so he said, we'll know if you have it if your symptoms go away and they come back in 6 months or 6 years, you'll come back. So I left there thinking, well, okay. Symptoms did subside a few weeks later, thought everything was fine. When my life got stressful, these symptoms would come and go. My hands would be kind of tingly and I'd drop things, but I just went about my life, went to work, tried to change what was going on. And about 10 months into our marriage, I found out that my husband had an addiction problem, and I thought I could fix it. Of course, you can't fix that. So at this time, we were trying to start our family. Didn't happen for, I don't know, almost a year. Well then, when we found out we're expecting a baby, that was going to change everything. My husband at the time would sing walking around the house, she's having my baby. He was so excited. Sharon came along in May of 1990. Things got worse in our home. Job loss, the first time he had lost a job. Just things that happen with people that have addiction, money problems, how we're going to pay the bills. So I was always the one that would, I guess, pick up the slack. I'm going to get a second job. I'm going to sell cosmetics in the evening. I'm going to fix this. So one of the worst memories of that time when my life and marriage I felt falling apart, I was at work, so 1993, and Steve had called a realtor to see about selling our house. And we thought, well, we can sell the house quickly. We haven't made a mortgage payment in 2 months, I believe it was. She found out we didn't owe that much on the house, so she would buy it quickly. When I say quickly, I mean within a week. She gave us half of the market value. I don't even know how I got home that day. I can remember driving and getting lost coming home and pulling over and just crying and sobbing. I don't know what I'm going to do. We went back and forth a few times. I lived with my mom for a few months, went back because things seemed to be working out. Lived with my brother and his wife for a few months. Long story short, I did that for a few years. So in 1996, I decided I could no longer live this way. I felt very, very guilty about all of this because I was raised Catholic and probably hadn't been to church since I was 14 or 15. But I thought, this isn't God's design for you to just leave and divorce someone. In 1993, Sharon and I were still living with my husband at the time. Things got really bad. The house was sold, wasn't sure where we were going to live. So we were living with my brother and his wife, actually at her grandmother's house in the basement. I was having some problems in the summertime with babysitting. So my sister-in-law said, hey, I can help you out a couple days a week. You know, she had a daughter that was the same age as Sharon. And she called me one day and said, there's something called Vacation Bible School down at this little church in Edgemere. And because we were both brought up Catholic, she goes, I just feel like I have to ask your permission because it's not a Catholic church. And I giggled and I said, no, that's fine. You can take her. It was during the day, like 9 to 12, I think. Well, at the end of that week, all I heard was how good Miss Bonnie was and all these songs that she had learned. And so then we started coming to this church. I was going to the adult Bible school. Sharon was doing Sunday school after the 8:30 service because we were morning people. And we were here for a couple years. So in 1996, when I decided I could not live this lifestyle anymore, and I had to leave this situation, I called Pastor Tim and I said, you know, I feel terribly guilty about all of this. And he listened and he said, do you feel safe in your home? And I said, not really. There's no physical abuse, but with drug addiction, who knows what can happen. He didn't tell me to divorce him, but he said that God wouldn't want me to live in a situation where I felt afraid and that it was okay to separate. At that point, I was just searching, I guess. I was lonely, I was tired of being by myself, lived in a little tiny one-bedroom apartment with my daughter. I don't know that I was going to church much at all at that point. But God always brings you back, you know. But I feel like it's always those times when I can do this myself. You can't, you know? And I guess my Catholic upbringing, I never had that closeness. I never felt close to God. I felt like he was on a throne looking down, trying to catch me doing something wrong. So if I felt like I was doing something wrong, I wasn't coming to church. In 1996, when I decided I was leaving my husband, you know, we're just going to do this on our own, I think I felt so guilty about that, I stopped coming to church for a while. Then I met Jay and dating him for a while. A couple years later, that's 1998, we decided to buy a house together. So we did that. Then I'm thinking, I'm really feeling guilty, we need to be married. So I said, I'm not going to do this for a year or two. I'll do it for a few months and we should get married. So a few months goes by and he proposes to me, not with a ring or anything. He just said, are you really ready to get married? We've both been through a divorce. We can't live through that again. I said, well, we have to do things differently. We need to be going to church, we need to put God in our marriage, but we wanted to get married, you know, sooner rather than later. He had a son that was 5, Sharon was now 8. So we found a little Christian church in Essex that said he could marry us like 3 weeks later. It was quick. So that was 1998. We got married in January of 99. So we started going to a church that was close to our house in Rosedale. Went there for a little bit, but then something just didn't fit. Something didn't seem right. There was a sermon there that I just didn't agree with. It was outside of what I thought was biblically correct. We didn't go to church for a few months, and I said, we need to find another church. And Sharon was, I don't know, maybe 10. She said, why don't we go to that church that we went to where Miss Bonnie was? Can we go back there? So we came back to Edgemere. Jay started coming with me. I met people here. I knew some of them because I grew up in this area. Lisa Shusha, I can remember prior to me quitting church, I guess you could say it, probably in 94, 95, we were in the old church. They did an altar call and I went up and I was just crying. I mean, shoulders shaking, sobbing. And she came up and laid a hand on my shoulder and said, I'll be praying for you. She didn't know what was going on in my life. That just meant the world to me. So when I came back a few years later, I said, oh, she has a child around Sharon's age, and oh, they have youth group, and we should get involved. That's when I recommended that Sharon go to youth group. She wasn't quite sure about it, but she came, and then Garrett would come, and it just felt like this is where God wanted us to be. This was our church family. So things were pretty good at that point in my life. My friend Tina, I have to bring her into this conversation. So 1992 to 95, I was pretty involved in Al-Anon 12-step program. She was now pretty involved in church. I lost touch with her for a little while. And then she was telling me how she had gotten baptized as an adult. I'm like, oh, again, we were all raised Catholic. You got baptized at 5 days old. So she was telling me about that. I'm coming back to church now. You know, my kids are getting older. I just really felt this connection, and I thought, I need to be baptized. It must have been 2004. One of the church members lived on the water, and it was in September, and Sharon was 14, so I was 34, and we got baptized. Not that that, you know, is this magic thing, but it just felt like I'm part of the family of God, and He's always guided me, and I know that, but now I'm doing it. I'm telling people, I'm coming to church. I want to learn. I want to learn more about the Bible. That was a turning point for me that year. So just fast forward a little bit. Sharon's going to college. Things are going great. You know, I'm doing a new sales job. I think things are pretty smooth. My parents were starting to age, and my father had a stroke in 2018. He had to be put into a nursing home. And I'm the youngest of 5, but I'm the only daughter. So I took that on to help, you know, go there and talk with the nurses and doctors. And at the same time, my mother was having problems with her memory. So about 3 months later, Jay and I decided to move Mom in with us. This is where I prayed like I've never prayed before. To watch her mom, who was strong and raised 5 kids, and now suddenly isn't sure how to make a sandwich is tough. Lots of saying this serenity prayer, basically. Tina had given me a Bible a few years before it was called the Recovery Bible, and all the steps from that Al-Anon program come right from the Bible, really. So it was a lot of reading that, praying. I guess I was becoming a grandparent around the same time. Josiah was 2. Parker was a new baby when all this was happening. And I look back now and I'm like, I don't know how I got through that period of my life, but for the grace of God, because it was a really trying time. At the same time, I had a brother that was still living in my mom's house, 2 of them, and the oldest one was drinking obsessively and not working. And so he died in 2019. Again, you know, I always thought maybe one day he'll get his life together, and it saddened me that he didn't. But at that point, I was stronger in my faith, and God knows the pain that we're in. He knows that we're struggling, but it's up to us to reach out and not try to do it our own way. I was tired of that. I wasn't going to go back to that anymore. So I have had some struggles in my life with my health. You know, it was MS that was finally diagnosed 10 years after the first episode. And I thought that was enough. So then fast forward to last year, and I went for a mammogram in December, just because that's what you're supposed to do every year. And I got a call back, and the doctor said, "We found something suspicious. We'd like you to come in for another test." I wasn't really alarmed at all. I know that happens a lot. So I went in, and the young doctor came out and said, "We see something, we need to do a biopsy." Then I was getting a little concerned. So a week later, I went and had that done. I'm the kind of person that if I find out something's wrong, I feel like immediately I have to do something to try to fix it. So the doctor that had performed the biopsy on Wednesday called me early Friday morning and said, "We got your test results back." And I said, "Oh, that was quick. Is everything okay?" And he said, "No, you tested positive." I said, "I don't understand what that means." And he said, "Well, it means you have breast cancer." And I said, "Well, what do I do about that?" And he said, "You need to find a breast surgeon." So called Sharon, let her know what was going on. She was actually away for the weekend. She gave me some numbers, and I called those doctor's offices, but they couldn't see me for 2 months. So then I called my primary care. Like I said, I wanted to fix this real fast. Come to find out, when I came to church on Sunday, I'm telling 2 women here that I know have had breast cancer, they used the same surgeon. So I felt like, wow, God is like answering this prayer immediately. So I did 20 rounds of radiation, and it was the weirdest thing. When radiation was over, I had met so many people. You go every day. I would wake up in the morning and go, and you'd see people there. They might be younger than you, older than you, different kind of cancers, and you talk to them for 10 minutes before you get called back. At the end of the radiation, it was almost like a letdown. Like, I'm not going to know what happened to these people. I knew some of their names. I could pray for them, but it changed me. It just, God puts people in your life, certain times. But I had people at church praying for me. Tim had me come up, right before my surgery, and people laid hands on me, and I wasn't afraid. I have done the follow-up appointment, and it seems to be gone. No evidence of disease, and we'll follow up every year. So again, God was there. When I'm crying out, I don't know what to do about this, Lord. Please show me the way. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a peace that passes all understanding that we read about in the Bible. So as I look back on my life, one thing God has shown me over and over again is when I can't see a way out of a situation, He provides a way. There's always hope. You just need to pray and ask God for guidance, because I don't sometimes know how to get through the situation. So as I look back on my life and I think about 1993 to 1996 when my marriage was crumbling and I didn't know how to support myself and my child and what I was going to do, it's amazing, and I can't even imagine how my life is today. Philippians, it says, I know what it is to have little, I know what it is to have much. I know that, and I can remember I wrote it all on paper. I had a job, I had a second job, but I knew what my rent was going to be, and it didn't work out. I had a car payment, I had rent, I had a credit card bill, but somehow they're all due at different times of the month. I never missed a payment, and that's God. God was there the entire time. Sometimes I wake up and I have to pinch myself. Is this the life I'm living? Because it is so much better. There's peace in my home. I still have anxiety about things. We work, we have issues, but nothing. I can't even tell you how much different my life is from 20, 25, 30 years ago. And it's all because I chose to let God back in. Get me off here. God always provided. For people, especially young women, people that are struggling and they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, there's nothing to be ashamed and embarrassed about. God knows our struggles. You can provide for your child and at the same time pray for the husband that wasn't able to make things work at that time in his life. We can pray for people. We can ask for help. I know that's so hard for some of us. You can find someone. I've always said, if there's somebody that's struggling, a young woman that's in a bad situation, I would gladly talk with them. I would take them to a support group. I would bring them to church, because at that time I felt so alone. But we're not alone. God knows our struggles, He knows our heart, and that's why I choose to keep following Jesus.